still says we're offline. Oh, live now. It is not on the starting soon screen. It is on your face.
On your face.
On my face, huh?
On his face.
Here, I'm gonna.
And Shay
yeah,
is singing
so,
on his face, so.
so it jumped over to everybody.
Hey!
My camera's off a little bit.
Off a little bit.
It's slightly askew.
Well, there's a gap
There's a gap.
between my camera border and the border that you have me in.
Okay. I can make you bigger. The main problem being for me that.
Oh no, it's in that little widget.
Ah, gotcha. Talking about
Here,
like
let me. Yeah, now it looks good. I think. If you could move it a little bit to this. Oh, now out of it.
Sorry, it all delays, so.
Oh,
I
you're
think
good. Yeah.
Everything you see is slightly slower.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is if you move it up a smidge and to the left, that'll cut out the green lines that are appearing when I speak.
How about now?
I'm waiting for it to catch up. I think I'm still seeing it. Yeah, I'm still seeing it. Here, look, I'm gonna stream to Discord what I'm seeing. So.
Oh, so I won't be able to see both of those at the same time. Because when you do that, it's going to screw up this stream thing. Just so you know.
Oh,
So
I know. But,
Okay.
okay, yeah, I won't do that then.
It's fine. I'm just making sure you're aware. It
That
shouldn't
looks
do it
good.
anymore.
And yeah, you're perfect.
Sweet. What's really funny is somebody joined our stream last time, gave us a live viewer, and then chatted. I personally don't expect us to have live viewers for a while. I'm mostly using this to get us the VODs, and because this is the easiest way for me to also record the video, right? Because I don't want to sit here and have to do a lot of video editing in the future. And so in my mind, this is the best way for us to get like YouTube content out there and stuff like that.
No, totally understandable.
This is basically lazy editing on my part.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was sounding weird too. Let me double check.
Okay, I did fool with the settings a little bit. Shay was just like massively loud last time for some reason, so
I
you
just
might wanna
always
listen.
am. I'm very loud.
I mean, I can turn down the
Yeah,
sound.
I'm gonna deafen in here, as I know what my volume sounds like for me out in the thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you guys just talk, and I'll get an idea.
Well, here is me talking normally, at least mostly normally, and then I can kick it over to Shay and see how he feels like he sounds.
You want me to talk now?
Yeah, say things.
Yeah, I can talk about. Let's
Just
talk.
get your Power Rangers things out of the way for the evening.
Okay, well, there's not a room blade this set, guys, so I got to come up with a new joke. I don't have a new joke, by the way. What is my audio coming good to Drayton? Oh.
You're making him laugh no matter what. So.
Well, I mean, we're on a
he's
30-second. It was a 30-second lag, so it's probably
like a
you
5-second lag, not a. I don't think it's a 30-second lag.
Oh.
I'm not being funny.
Okay, so I'm muting the Twitch now. Okay, so Adam, I think you and I's volumes are about the same. Shay's coming through a little bit louder than us. It's not like bad,
Okay.
but it is. I think it's a little poppier.
Just
also.
a second. I might be able to fix this. Just a second.
Yeah, last time it just looked like your gain was jacked way up, comparatively.
Okay.
Now I can make my face bigger. You guys' faces are just more in center to the camera than mine. I've got this nice like thing just coming. I probably should never do this motion ever again.
I mean, it's possible we have another viewer because there were two in the chat. I guess I can actually find out who is in here.
There were two for a little while. Alex
Action
Hernandez,
Shin.
poor guy, he watched us last time live, and he never mentioned the sound quality on Shay, and he's just like, I just thought you guys were kind of like, But anyway, guys, so tonight, Shay kind of explained what we were going to talk about, and I thought it would be good to talk about, yes, our overall strategies for sealed, but also just
before we get started, I still need to do all my other stuff. I have done
good.
nothing other than just check sound. So let me go ahead and get that started.
All right, I'll hop us over, and we are live. So, welcome. We are Kadachi for 3, and we are finally welcoming back our third member, the long forgotten, but not actually forgotten. Also, his face is on camera. What more can you ask for? We have Drayton, and he's beautiful.
I don't know about beautiful, but I am back, and it is good to be back. I had some real life things going on that just totally took me out of the game for a while there, and I'm glad to be back and glad to be playing.
So yeah, I suppose I should say that I am Adam, though people know at this point I think that I do the intro. We have Drayton, and then
always the third build member. Hi, I'm Shay.
So definitely not always the third build member. We had several guest speakers on, and you were never build behind them.
Yeah, there's always a poignant pause.
You bring in the joke, you're our joke segue. Me and Drayton don't do that, and so there's no possible way that we could really move it without it.
You're the plucky comic relief character that every show needs.
100%.
Yeah, no, I mean, fan favorite.
You're our Sokka.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an metaphor here.
If we're going for Avatar things, I probably am more Bolin. It's he's really trying. They're trying to make him the funny character, but everyone's like, I sure do miss the one from season 1.
Shay.
Wow. So before Shay goes into too much of a shame spiral or self-deprecation, tonight we're going to be talking about the new pre-release that's coming up for Uprising. I want to preface that none of us were able to go to Las Vegas, which is such a bummer to me. We're going to do an interview with one of the judges who did go to Vegas, just talk about their experience and how you can get into judging at a competitive level in the future. But tonight we're just going to talk about what do you do when you're going out to a sealed event? What do you do when you're going out to a pre-release event? And then maybe being a little more specific about what we might do this weekend for the Uprising pre-release. Now, of course, we're not professionals at this yet, so take it with a grain of salt. We'll come back with a better guide once we've all got a little bit more of our sea legs in the set, shall we say. But we have done a lot of reviews over these cards. We have looked into it quite a bit, so it's not like we're completely firing from the hip here. So let's start with just some sealed advice. What are we thinking, guys?
Yeah, so it's important in every sealed event that you want to have some game plan of how you're going to win with whatever hero you might be on. So, for instance, let's say you're picking up Dramai. You're probably gonna need to make some tokens, some little dragon babies that are gonna pounce on your opponent's face. If you're playing with Fae, you're probably gonna need to leverage go again attacks. Or Fi. If you're playing Islander, you need to be using that arcane damage to hopefully do unblockable damage to trounce your opponent. But you want to make sure you have like some idea of like how each hero wins the game, because if you don't understand how the heroes win the game, then you can end up in a lot of awkward like uh trading scenarios where it's just like, all right, I poke at you, you block it out, you poke at me, I block it out, and you go in this endless loop forever if you don't really have a clear vision of how you're going to close the game. You can play the game great up until that point, but if you can't close it, you can't close it.
Yeah, you
And
end up getting fatigued.
and that's something that one of our locals was talking about in a chat recently, was like, how do you close a game? And I mentioned that you gotta really talk about it from character to character, not just like in general, how do you close a game? Because even two fatigue decks like Ninja Turtle versus old Bravo Fatigue, both want to close games very differently, and depending on what your game plan is for how you win games, that's gonna affect what you're doing.
The other thing to keep in mind that Sealed in particular airs toward people probably playing these dirtlier, more fatiguey, less spiky kind of decks. Because, like, when in doubt, slap 35 to 40 cards and try to poke your opponent to death.
Yeah, now I will say I think that's less of an option in this particular set for a couple of reasons. There's not a lot of weapons in the set, meaning the only hero that even has a weapon is Fi. When I say has a weapon that has its own native attack that you can pitch for.
Mm-hmm.
So even though Fi is one of the most aggressive heroes that I've seen in a long time from her build, he is actually probably the best fatigue hero in this set as well. So if you were looking for a, drop your opponent out of cards build, the ability to recur those Phoenix Flames as well as to swing that weapon is likely to be the best way to do that.
Now,
see, I think to a degree. Oh, go ahead, Drayton.
I was gonna say, that being said, I mean, he does suffer from the ninja problem of a lot of his stuff says blocks for 2, which makes those breakpoints a lot more difficult for him to cover up.
For sure.
And his things that do come in for 3, he's really probably not wanting to block with, but if he has to in a pinch, he probably will. And Shay, you had something to comment?
No, similar vein. I actually think, Islander is probably poised better to be a turtle kind of hero. So much of her stuff is blocking for 3. The fact that she's going to make the opponent, like, having to kind of be slower, burn more resources, anything she can do to just kind of, gum up the wheels here, like, it's pretty natural. I also think her weapon is while it's not a traditional, like, I can consistently poke you on my turn, she's going to, consistently tax you on her turn. That said, I also think that has the highest skill ceiling of the 3 heroes in this to, manage her and everything. So if you're a newer player, err on the side of Ninja. I think Fi has the lowest floor of the 3 heroes in this, where it's at the bare minimum, I'm going to have a traditional cost curve that I would expect in this game. I have some blues, I have some yellows, I have some reds, and I'm just here to consistently do damage.
Yeah, another big thing is, we've all seen these decks that are like, oh, I'm just going to go hyper aggro, 0 cost for 4s, reds, go again, nonsense. That usually doesn't string together as nicely as you want it to in your head in Limited. You're going to want to play a lot more blues. I would probably recommend, especially if you're a newer player, have at least a third of your deck be blue, if not more. You can do a lot with blue cards. You would be shocked how often I've been down to just only blue cards in my deck, and as an aggro ninja build in a limited setting, and hey, go again for 1 still can get you there sometimes.
Sure.
Because if it requires a block, it requires a block. So
if you can find it blue and it blocks for 3, you're it slotted in.
I think it's important to note that most of Fi's stuff costs 1. And even recurring that Phoenix Flame is typically going to cost you unless you've pushed out an extremely long chain. And from what I can tell, even just seeing people test on, webcam, Discord, that kind of games, you can really push with Fi when you probably shouldn't, meaning inefficiently. So there's no real reason to get that 4th chain link to bring it back for free. most of the time.
I mean, if you look at it though, so say you're swinging in, you have a 0 strength or cost attack and a blue in hand, you can go 0 with go again, sword, Phoenix Flame, and that's a traditional 2-card ninja. Like, I blocked some damage and I was able to crack back disproportionately. So that's a thing to keep in mind. Like, what your turn to turn, like what your standard loop should look like. Don't let the delusion of magical Christmas land like cloud your mind. Look at what, like, oh, what's my bad turn look like? And if your bad turn can look like, oh, you know, attack, Phoenix Flame or something like that, then you're golden.
Yeah. Honing in on Fi for a minute, since we've been talking about him a lot, it makes sense to just kind of like focus on him for a minute. There's a lot of cards that have requirements on them in the sets. They'll say like if you have 2 or more Draconic Chain Links, or if you have 4 or more Draconic Chain Links, all this stuff. Those cards are going to be great in constructed. They're going to be less powerful in this setting. I'm not saying don't put any of them in your deck. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying though is if I have to choose between a card that has conditional go again and a card that has natural go again in my Fi deck, I'm probably choosing the card that has innate go again, especially for those blue like late game slots. If you if I'm having to choose between I'm trying to think of one like Soaring Strike. I think actually most of the ones that actually have conditional go again are actually only in red, if memory is actually serving correctly. So again, like just be careful about the red in your build, because there is a lot of red in this set. There's a lot of red in this set. And
It's
it can
also
be a big trap.
Yeah. It's also important. So a lot of your 0 cost go again is link 2 or higher. Keep that in mind. Like, those are decisions. Like, if you're deciding to go 5 with your sealed pool, kind of what I would do is I'd break your like ninja cards up into goes again, like natively, conditional go again, closers, and like see where things kind of fall, see where that cost curve goes, and like shove blues in as needed. 10 blues, rule of thumb, yeah, you'll probably be good. I would almost say err a little high on blues than even you'd normally think you need, because you don't want one Frostbite to make you go full Joe Exotic.
Yeah, another thing is like if you see Icelander across the table from you, put in a lot more blues. Like you're gonna want to slot, even if it just means going over 30. Like have your blues ready to be slotted in, because you just might need them. Another thing that's worth noting about Fi is his ability. A lot of people are like talking about how, okay, well this is great because you get an extra chip attack in. Well, sometimes the best thing to do with that Phoenix Flame might be to just arsenal it. Like get your 3 attacks in, get it back for free, arsenal it, like end your turn, put it like nothing's stopping you from like having a bigger turn next turn, especially if you push your opponent on the back foot and they're not really going to be able to like do anything about it. It's like, cool, now that I've guaranteed that this can go in my arsenal without any consequences, I'm going to slip this in arsenal, I'm going to pass to you, you're going to do absolutely nothing to me, and then now I'm going to have this crazy 5-card hand wombo turn that maybe I'm playing this Phoenix Flame, pulling back another one, playing that one out, and now I'm able to actually do the crazy big tricks. And if that lines up nicely, that might be a good way to close a game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, indeed. I do think too many people push to play their entire hand when they should not, regardless of whether it's just recurring your Phoenix Flame and putting that in Arsenal, or even it's just playing out that last card that you might be using to recur your Phoenix Flame. I actually think a lot of times arsenaling and setting up a bigger future turn is better. Couple of chip damage, especially if you're not presenting a lot, which in this game you're really not presenting a lot right now. In this limited format, most of the attacks are quite low unless you're able to set up these last things. Plus the rupture effects aren't really that good, aren't really that stand out if you're really having to burn through and weaken your next turn to do it.
Another thing to keep in mind mid to late game is once you've got 2 or 3 of your Phoenix Flames out, you can pitch those things as well. Like, that makes, if you have that turn where you're going wide, you can pitch one of those for a red resource.
100%.
Like, it's a thing, don't treat it as, like, it's still a resource in hand whenever you recur it. So, you can Phoenix Flame for 1, or you can red, Dust Runner Outlaw for 5 or 4. Is it a 4? It's a 4.
It
I
is a
was
4.
Rebellious Rush.
So I think it's important to establish that at least I, and you guys can say yes or no here, I think that if you don't know what you're doing going in to your sealed pull, I think it is almost always in this particular set going to be worth flopping down your ninja cards first and seeing whether you can make a passable deck, and then comparing the other heroes to your ninja pool to see if they are better or worse, but to always start from ninja if you are not an experienced player or not somebody who feels very comfortable playing the wizard, or is fairly comfortable with what I think will end up being a very low health pool before you're able to crack back with Dromai, because I think Dromai requires quite a bit of setup. That's my thing before I really go into too many in-depth cards, and I just kind of wanted to try to hammer that point home, because I know we're trying to be good to the layman type players, the players who are just kind of going out their first one.
I think Dromai in limited is actually going to be a little bit more flexible than in constructed, because while yes, setup is going to be required, your opponent's not going to be able to tailor their tools to deal with you efficiently. Like let's take Ninja for example, right? Let's take both heroes for a minute. So let's take Fi. Fi, in order for him to whittle through even just the Aether Wings, he doesn't have double Kodachi, which would be probably something that if I were in a constructive match and I were seeing a Fi sitting across from me, I'd probably have 2 Kodachis sideboarded just for dealing with that. And he's not going to have that tool available to him, and that's meaning he's going to have to either expend a card or he's going to have to expend his weapon attack in order to get rid of your little 1/1 little dragons. So yes, some setup is going to be required, but I think that pressure, if you get through that first early game efficiently, I think you're going to be fine. But again, speaking to newer players, I agree. Ninja should be your first point. I think Dromai is a second point. Just understanding that there are weaknesses to your little dragons, but their strengths are going to show more in this limited format. So, they do have Phantasm, which does mean that if they put a 6 strength attack in front of your attack or higher, that it's going to pop it. I didn't see a lot of 6 strength attacks in this set, though.
5.
5. Okay.
Now there is a generic that comes in for a 4, but you can buff it on the defense, which indeed makes it equivalently the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's gonna, if your opponent's willing to put something like that in front of these dragons, that's gonna cost them almost as much as you. So we're noting that if you do get set up, you will be in a relatively strong position to start doing a good amount of damage if your opponent isn't dealing with your board properly. So I think my main 2 to be looking at would be Dromai and Fi if I were a newer player. If you're looking for a little bit of a challenge, look into Dromai's cards a little bit, understand the basic mechanics. Fi is gonna be a lot more straightforward for those of you who are just like, I haven't really played much since Wraith, or I've played the Wraith heroes, but nothing really much beyond that. Fi is gonna be a little more on the level, I would say, the Tales of Aria heroes, in my opinion.
And I'm going to be a teensy bit contrary on Dromai. I think Dromai is probably going to be your hardest hero to play. I think slapping down a couple bit of arcane damage is still effective in this set when there's very little to no arcane barrier. It's all having to be dealt with in Quell. So if you get enough arcane damage, I think Icelander becomes quite easy.
That's fair, but I mean, Dromai does have the Aether Wings, which do have Arcane Barrier on them, so there is actually Arcane Barrier in that way.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's an interesting matchup because you kind of
a triangle.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I will say Dromai has the highest defensive potential probably. She has the thing that can turn an Ash into a Ward 4 or 2 or 3 or whatever. The Aether Wings themselves can negate some of that, arcane damage. And, but she's playing a heavy Euro game. There's a level of fatigue, and you've got to, meticulously plan out how you're building your engine in the sealed pool. And honestly, if you don't have certain cards, it's not worth it even trying. It'll come down to what rare dragons pop up in your pool, if any.
Mhm.
So
For
if you
sure.
get, what's its real name? Because I only know it as Uwu Dragon. Uh,
I mean, I can pull that up for you while you
Uvi.
continue to talk
No,
about
no,
it.
no, no.
But
Uvi. Yeah, Uvi. Like if you pull Uvi and you know you can, reach like maximum Aether Wing saturation pretty quickly. It's a dragon you're not gonna have to swing with. It has 6 health, so your opponent's gonna have to like burn a turn to do it. And then you can just cram some generically like good generics and stuff to supplement that. Like, cool, you got a Dromai deck brewing.
so my issue is I think Dromai is fragile because it costs Ash to put them out there, and if you are not patient, that dragon is completely useless to you because Fi will pop one every turn with a Phoenix Flame. It's very easy to do. I spun it up on Tabletop Simulator. It's not hard to pop a dragon every turn, like for no cost to you.
No, and that's why I think you have to have something like Uvi in your pool or whatever. And
Well, and I think that's the thing is like you're talking about Fi, right?
Yeah.
I think Islander or Icelander it struggles a lot more into Dramai. So I think we're really seeing in this set a big triangle forming of, rock paper scissors of essentially Dramai is supposed to beat Icelander, Icelander is supposed to beat Fi, Fi is supposed to beat Dramai. I think generally
I agree.
speaking, that is the trend. Like those are the matchups you're looking at when you're sitting down across from your opponent. If you're on the losing end of that situation, then you are understanding going into that game, you're in the hot seat. You're the one who's gonna have to like kind of work hard for your win. Doesn't mean that it's unwinnable.
no.
It's just gonna, as you mentioned, Adam, require more patience on your part to
Mhm.
get said win.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Another thing to keep in mind when you crack those 6 packs, statistically, you're going to get at least one Majestic, maybe 2, and those in of themselves can be kind of your pivot point for your entire deck that you can build around, or they're garbage and you're like, why did I put this in my deck?
I mean,
And
there are definitely things you can set yourself apart with. So for Ninja, Combustion Point, for example, is basically a warrior's version of Route. That's a great closer. I cannot imagine such a terrible Ninja pool that I wouldn't try to play around that if I could. I mean, there's a lot of good key cards, even some that are just in the rare slots for each class, right? That can really make you stand out.
for sure.
100%, yeah.
Honestly, maybe we should talk about some of those. So we talked about Fi first. Do you guys have any, like, if you were to just pick out one standout card for Ninja or for Fi here in this particular set? Let's make it from the Ninja stuff, and then we'll talk about generics for Fi afterwards. But what would you guys choose?
Oh, like what I want to see in my sealed pool?
Yeah, what's something that would kind of like push you towards it? Whether it's, hey, I'm seeing a bunch of, Cinderskin Devotion or something, or Brand with
So
Cinderclaw.
the big ones for me would be your innate go again cards.
Mm-hmm.
Ninja to me is always wanting to be in that situation where it's like I'm gonna keep up the pressure. I'm gonna make it awkward numbers where it's the 4s and the 3s and the 5s. You know, you can't efficiently block everything. Something's got to give. Something's gonna get through, and by leaking that damage over time, I'm gonna get my win. That's what I always think of whenever I see what I'm trying to build with a ninja deck. Um, Now that being said, in this particular one, having maybe a couple of combat tricks, some attack reactions, things of that nation, just to like close out. But again, you don't really have your staunchy like old hymns or bravos who are like, I'm just gonna block everything and
Yeah.
we're gonna get to that fatigue game plan. No one's really showing that outside of even maybe Icelander, but even Icelander's not really doing it in the same way. So you don't have to worry about defensive cards. You have to worry about different things.
That said,
So
she does have D-React, which is relevant.
they do have, there are some D-React type things in the set that are very relevant. That being said, though, it's not on the same level as a built-in D-React on Oldhim or Guardian having some decent equipment that you can draft, as well as now all of a sudden I have a card that blocks for 6 and all my cards block for 3, right? It when you have a pool of like half your cards block for 2, your ability to fatigue gets very different. The only reason that was like an exception for Oldhim was because he had a built-in mechanic that allowed him to block more efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going fatigue with Fi, you're basically intentionally slotting in a bunch of your 3-block generics. If that is your goal,
And 3 block ninjas.
yeah, and 3-block ninjas. You're basically just trying to build your deck around as many 3-blocks as possible to do that, and fatiguing out with your weapon. I think that's going to be harder to do from a skill standpoint, as well as just from everything you said there, Drayton, as a card pool standpoint, because Fi in general is a terrible blocker. Terrible. I think, and maybe I don't want to get too far off the picking cards here, but I think it's maybe worth discussing how many of the token that you include. The Phoenix Flames. So you start with 1 in your graveyard. I personally think I would recommend only putting 1 in your deck. Shay apparently is holding up 3, so he wants 3 in his deck plus 1 in his graveyard, or 2 in his
I'm
deck?
saying 2 or 3. I think, because here's the thing. It needs to come off the combat chain and go into your graveyard for you to be able to recur it. The whole point of wanting to put 1 into your arsenal, which I think is a game plan you want to have open to you to some degree, is very important for setting up those bigger turns where it's like, I'm going to do something with Go again, play a Phoenix Flame, recur a Phoenix Flame after doing something else, and now I've done 2 Phoenix Flames in 1 turn. I think that those turns are going to be very critical to his game plan, so you need at least 2. The third, I feel like I would still go because there are a few cards. I'm blanking. I'm gonna see if I pull up the one that I'm thinking of really quick. Like Burn Away. I think Burn Away, being able to just suddenly have a 0 for 4 with Go again, blowing a Phoenix Flame after you know you have already 3 in the graveyard, could be very critical. So I think 3 is gonna be where I'm gonna lean towards, because I think it opens up more play avenues.
Sure.
And I don't think it's a card that like you're like crying when you see it drawn. Maybe if you draw 2 really, like your other 2 really early, you're like frustrated, but now you got all 3 of them in your graveyard, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, once you have like all 3 in your graveyard, like you can treat basically one of them as like a pseudo resource. Like
Yeah.
if his ability reads like 4th chain link make $1, that's a strong ability.
For sure.
In my cards I chose is just I would like to see like 5 copies of Ronin Renegade.
Okay.
Yeah, 0 cost, native Go again. It's just a head jab, and it's a head jab that has the word Draconic on it that powers everything else.
I like Duskrunner Outlaw better, but that is similar vein.
Mm-hmm.
So my choice would have been the honestly the Engulfing Flame Wave. I know it costs a lot, but when it hits, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an attack action card with less than the number of chain links you control, you can banish it, play it this turn. I personally think even if you're only flopping 1 thing out there, it's a good card. You're paying for 2. 20+% of your deck is likely to be 0 costs and likely to be 0 cost to reds. So even if it's the very first thing you do, you might get a free attack in there. So I feel like it's pretty efficient, and it comes in for 5, requiring 3 cards from another 5 to block out all the damage. Probably.
I think I prefer out of that little cycle, because there's a 0, 1, and a 2 that all kind of played off each other a little bit with those on hit effects.
Mm-hmm.
I still think I like the 0 Rising Resentment the most.
Rising Resentment's very good. I completely agree with you. I think it's very good. It's my second choice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's move real quick to Illusionist. Talk about that. You laugh because real quick is just not our jam.
Yeah, no. Are you just gonna pick our favorite dragon?
I maybe. I was gonna say what cards would make you gravitate towards Illusionist in general. It's not gonna be favorite dragon for me, but I'll let you guys go first on that. Because dragon is not what makes me choose Illusionist here.
Oh no! If I get to Uvi or whatever in my pool, then I legitimately might consider going Dromai.
Yeah, I feel like Uvi is a big one. What is it? The
Thema or whatever that just tells Wizard they can't play the game.
There's the no, that one only has 1.
No,
Thema.
it's a 3/4. Thema, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at a different one. But the Necarai, just because it has 7, so it's gonna be a lot. Yes, you are putting -1 counters up, but you are getting Ash out of that. So again, like these 2 dragons that help you to create your board state, I think are 2 that you're gonna be wanting to look at. They're both also relatively healthy from the get-go, so they're more difficult to just be immediately evaporated. That being said, I also think that having some like skittering scan, just general transform cards, are going to be something that where you're going to be okay. How efficiently can I, once I have Ash, then create my board state and go and pressure and be aggressive? I think is very important. So I'm looking at the Rake the Embers, the Skittering Sands. These are cards that I think are going to be very important to you deciding if you want to go that direction.
Yeah, I mean,
also, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just gonna say Drayton hit my favorite with Skittering Sands. I think having low cost reds are extraordinarily important here, but low cost reds with native go again on them, just like Fi. I think one thing a lot of people don't think about with Dromai is that you've got to play a red to get go again on all your stuff, right? And if you don't have that red with go again to lead off, you don't really have a turn, and that's also what gives you the end game, right? At the end game, I can, in theory, block with 3 cards for 9, and then play my red Skittering Sands and still attack you with every single dragon, which is just a blowout turn. So for me, those 0-cost reds and those 0-cost reds with go again are really the main thing for the deck. So if I had a few Skittering Sands, the dragons don't mean as much to me, I think.
It's also your red
density. I agree that like the dragons feel partially like a trap, but the 2 that I mentioned, again, they help you build that board state of like, okay, now I have pitch a red and you're dead on board. You have to start spending time dealing with my stuff, which then in turn gives me turn to rebuild. Because if they're blowing all their cards to just attack your stuff, yes, you don't have a weapon, but as long as you end the game with 1 dragon and they're out of cards, you still win.
Oh, for sure.
So it is kind of this efficiency battle, if you will. Dromai is also one that, the more I consider deck building with her, the more I lean towards probably playing over 30. I think that would be one where I'd be hovering probably around 35 personally. Just because I see myself expending a lot more cards building that board state and also defending. But that's going to kind of come to what you pull and what you really think is most efficient for your deck.
You also gotta know when to look at your like what you pulled and just be like, all right, I don't have the density of like reds to pull this off. Like I don't have,
but reds.
Yeah, I don't have, or the engine, because like that's the thing. You gotta have like something to do your Ashwing engine, and if you're just banking on 1 Ashwing a turn, your opponent's not going to let you have a board. So you got to like get to the point where you can, chug out multiples of those. So honorable mention though for me, red sand cover.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. It feels like having a good old D-React, and you get to like
worth noting, to your point, Adam, red sand cover also lets you turn on that engine because it's an instant.
Yeah, it is a wonderful card being an instant. It effectively is that red with go again. So I like that as a call out. I think it's wonderful. Instantly, a card that I thought was going to be terrible and probably is in CC, but Transmogrify is wonderful in sealed and in draft because of the low density of cards that are likely to break your Phantasm in sealed.
Now, that being said, a card that I could see you playing maybe a copy of, but I would make people wary of, is the giant Colossus one. I'm blanking on its name, but it's like the 13 strength one, but it requires them to pop something.
Oh, Frightmare.
Yeah, Frightmare. Again, not a lot of things that pop your thing, so cool card, but this is a very different game than last time we had an Illusionist in Limited.
Yeah, it's unlikely they're gonna pop it. If you have Frightmare, honestly, it probably sits in your arsenal until somebody pops one of your things. Even then, I mean, you're killing your arsenal for it.
Or you just put it in the sleeve and you're
cool,
like,
wow, it's a cool Majestic, but
I think it's pretty unplayable and sealed. I tend to agree with you. Okay, so more illusionist thoughts before we move a little.
No.
Now, do
Good.
we want to just talk about draconic cards really quickly? So like generic draconic things, because that kind of ties into just these
Sure.
two. There's not a whole lot in this.
I mean, they are going to be some things that like you'll see play, like Flame Call Awakening. You'll like if you have it, like it's solid. Like I'd probably play
Yeah.
that.
So one thing is worth noting, like you can play Phoenix Flames in Dramai,
You can.
Mhm.
which worth noting that if you are sitting there like in Adam's shoes going, man, if only I had like 2 more red 0 cost go again cards, then I
Mhm.
feel like I can make this like sing in an endgame state. It's not the best card for that deck, but it is a card that is 0 and has innate go again and is red. So
I
I'm
mean,
not saying it's something you want to be including in your Dramai decks, but it is an option to get you there if you need to.
I mean,
So make sure you're aware of that in your deck building decisions.
I'd almost
Um,
argue to throw 3 of them in there. Like they do
the
what she
only
wants.
the only reason I would argue probably not 3 in Dramai is because it does not block. And
It doesn't matter.
Ah,
sir, you and I
man.
have very different opinions on blocking. I know you live your ninja way,
Yeah.
and you're just like go 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 go. But
Blocking's for
Dramai
cowards.
wants to block.
Yeah, Dramai definitely wants. They want to survive to a late game in my mind. I could be wrong there. I
Now, good.
I was just gonna say I think Breaking Point is generically good.
Mhm.
It's got a rupture effect. It comes in for 5. It blocks for 3. It only costs 1 to play. No, it doesn't have any go again or anything like that on there, so that's a little bit of a downside. But I think I would play it in both heroes. And I think it's rare that I look at any of these other generic ones and I'm like, oh, in all scenarios, I play this in both heroes.
Inflame.
Inflame is on the line, yeah. I wasn't sure for me, but I do like that. Um,
Like it's 0, it's red, it's go again. Like that's why it if again checks all those boxes. If you happen to be playing Phoenix Flames, it's even better. So yeah, like that's why Inflame's like almost an auto include for me personally, but
I would
I
totally
like
play Blaze
0.
Headlong.
I like Blaze Headlong. It only blocks for 2, but it's good generic card. Um, I feel like Burn Away is primarily a Dromai card for me, and I'm Flame Call Awakening and Flameboard Retribution, in my opinion, are primarily Fi cards. Like I'm not saying I would never play them in Dromai, but
I could see a reasoning for it, like because you just want that Phoenix Flame out there to like tuck away or pitch for something, generate some ash. Like
I mean, if you're tossing a lot of Phoenix Flames in your Dromai deck, you definitely want Flameboard Retribution. Um, I mean, I apologize. Flame Call Awakening. You want them out of your deck.
I don't know. I think there's something like it depends on the saturation you get. Like these are going to be in the common slot,
Mm-hmm.
so like yeah, like if you notice you have like a density of these ones that let you tutor the Phoenix Flames out of your deck or something, go for it.
Right,
Like,
and also like again look for those synergies in the dragon
mhm.
slot, draconic slot, because I mean like let's say you have Flame Call Awakenings and you're looking at Dramai and you have Burnaways. Well now Burnaway is your better Phoenix Flame late game, right? You want to pitch away your Burnaways to late game, use Flame Call Awakening to search out those Phoenix Flames, get them into your discard, and then you're starting off Burnaway to get your engine going late game. That's coming in for 4 now with go again. That's great.
Mhm.
And then a bunch of little dragons afterwards. Like, forget about it. Everyone's dead.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I feel the draconic stuff like there are like it's all solid. It does a job. If you want that job, go for it. There are only a few of them that are a little bit duds, but I'll also say like I mean even Lava Burst like it's fine. I could see throwing one Lava Burst in there.
I mean, the nice thing about Lava Burst is it costs nothing. It comes in for 2 and it blocks for 3.
Yeah.
So.
And worst case scenario, you play it on Chain Link 4 or greater, and it's swinging in for 5.
That is not worst case scenario, but
You know,
I
if
mean,
that's the worst case, I'm
well,
okay
no,
with it.
like if you think
Yeah.
about it, no, like that's the thing though. Like, you're gonna be able to get that off so easy if you're playing Fi. Like, it's literally a open attack, sword, flame.
How are you giving your sword go again?
Having it be the second attack. It'd
if
be
it's
the
second
second.
attack, it is you have met the requirement of having 2 chain links.
Yeah,
True.
yeah, no,
Like, that's
it's
the thing is like a lot of people have been misreading a lot of the draconic and ninja things of like, oh, I need to get this to the 3rd or the 5th. No, as soon as you hit that actual number, you actually have met the prerequisite.
True,
So
because
it
when
is
it
a lot.
resolves,
It is a
it's-
lot simpler to get there than like Phoenix Flame. You just need some other thing and then Phoenix Flame, and now it has +1. It does not have to be the 3rd to get its +1 status.
yeah,
So, I like to Shay's point, like getting to 4 in Phi, I think a lot simpler than Dramai. Now, Dramai of a board state, very different.
hmm
You know, if you have 4 little dragons and you've done some sort of red thing to get the engine going, now suddenly Lava Burst could be a 5 very easily. But I think that banking on these rupture effects is not what you want to be doing when building. Having them and thinking about the fact that you can get there in certain game state scenarios, I think is very fair. But I think just banking on them being there when you need them is not the gameplay. Again, I know Adam and I share a similar idea of whenever we're thinking limited, we try and think of like what's the worst case scenario for our decks. How does my deck operate when I'm on the back foot rather than when I'm on the front foot? And so in those situations, these rupture effects really don't mean a lot to me. But again, it blocks for 3, and then on its high end, it is very strong coming in for 5. And again, on its low end, just coming in for 2 to close up a chain is totally fine in my book too.
And I appreciate Rupture because it just indulges me in I refuse to acknowledge my opponent's ability to hurt me.
I
It
can't
does
wait till you have
indeed.
to deal with frostbites. It will warm my heart.
Well,
That's okay.
speaking of that, let's get Frosty and talk about that wizard. I think there's a lot of cards that don't look sexy here, but
Oh,
raw arcane damage for me is amazing because turns out Quell can really only block one of those things.
That all said, I do think a bunch of her pool comes down to what you pull in blues
correct.
and what if you have the critical mass of ice cards. Because if you don't have a critical mass of like ice cards to power some fuse effects, a lot of her cards become exceptionally mediocre.
Well, and
I mean,
let's
Ether Dart just deals 3 arcane damage. How are you blocking that outside of Dromai? And even Dromai has to pay a lot to do it. I just don't know that I agree. Like, raw arcane damage in this is good.
I think the raw arcane damage, because of the amount that she can get in a single turn with just like pitching a blue and coming in with a red attack and her weapon. Well, not an attack, a non-attack that makes damage,
Mm-hmm.
if you will, because that is the big thing to be aware of if you are playing Icelander, is that your weapon is only available to you if you've played a non-attack action card that turn. Now, you can still do that on your opponent's turn using her abilities, but very important that you turn on your weapon. You can't just hold on to your blue and just
Mhm.
pitch do 2 arcane damage on your turn, or pitch do 2 arcane 3 arcane damage on your opponent's turn. It's not how it works.
She's not Kano. She can't chain multiple things. Your limited pool isn't going to have the gas to do a ton of chaining. A lot of her turn is going to look like arcane damage thing, staff, tuck a blue in the arsenal on their turn, flip a blue for whatever effect, staff for 3. Like, she's
So
very.
I don't know that it's even going to look like that in full, because I think there will be turns where you want a combo like that, but unless you're on like the real forefront of keeping up the pressure, I think a lot of times you're just going to be activating the staff on their turn and blocking out their other cards. This is
Maybe.
why I think cards like, oh, I had it here a minute ago and now I'm blanking on what it is. Please hold. Read the ripples. Read the ripples. I think read the ripples actually is like a very important card in the Icelander set. It doesn't get her trigger, but it is a card that will guarantee that you will have a card in your arsenal next turn. That is what Read the Ripples does. It guarantees that card in arsenal. And that's going to be very important for a lot of the plays she's wanting to make.
Mm-hmm.
So I think because of that, this card, while I don't think I would almost ever play it in Constructed, I think very, very critical to her gameplay in Limited. Another one is the Singe.
Yeah, that Singe is huge.
Singe is going to be huge for the Dramai matchup. So, ironically, like as much as like you want to focus in on her ice stuff, it's her wizard cards that say to me whether or not she's actually as playable as you might want her to be. Because having Singes, having Read the Ripples, I think are the cards that are going to help you to set up going into those. I'm consistently keeping up enough pressure to keep you off your back foot or to close this game. Because otherwise, I think that because she can't have the big, crazy, explosive turns like Fi can. And even if she is, it's not like you're creating those decision points for your opponent of like, hey, block this or die. It's either I'm either doing enough to kill you and you can't block it, or I'm not. That's going to be the situation the majority of the time. Now, again, Dramai has access to some Arcane Barrier, but again, a lot of these decks are being very red heavy, and so she's going to be able to block some of those situations very efficiently, others less so. And so it's going to get very interesting. I do think she's still set up to be the counter to Iyslander, but again, you're going to want to be thinking about how to set up your future turns consistently. And that's why I personally kind of put her a little bit higher on the thinking tree than Dramai personally. Because I feel like Dramai, yes, you have to think about how to set up your board, but if once you that's the only kind of task at hand. Figuring out how you're setting up 2, 3, 4 turns in the future, I think is a lot more of a bigger head game. And I think that Iyslander, when played properly, is going to really require that. That's not to scare people away from her, because again, just a single frostbite can just totally make your opponent be like, "Oh, I didn't keep a blue. Suddenly, I can't do anything."
Yeah, I don't get to play the game.
I'll pass.
Weekend. It's going to be very common open
weekend. I had people do that to me in a ProQuest when I was playing Lexi just very recently.
Well, that's just funny.
So
they're like, "Oh yeah, I have a frostbite. I guess I pass." Because they just forgot that I'd given them a frostbite token at the very beginning of the turn, and they did all their other math, and everything else was great and swell, and then they're like, "Oh, I have one more of these than I thought I did."
Yeah.
So,
I guess I can't do the thing I thought I was gonna do.
Arctic Incarceration is in blue. If you pull multiples of those in your pool, it is very much worth considering playing Iyslander, because being able to, on their turn, play as an instant, create a frostbite token under a target hero's control, and then hit them for 3 arcane damage is really funny. But yeah.
I have nothing negative to say about that. I like that play. I want it to happen for me all the time.
The other big one for me is blanking on its name too. Can I find it efficiently?
I guess, I don't know. She's not going to have access to as many ways to like generate bulk like frostbite tokens as she would with she had access to her full card pool. So you may be tempted if you see the thing that say like, "Oh, my frostbites deal you damage now," and things like that. You're not going to be able to generate them like in large numbers consistently. So like that I feel is kind of like a trap majestic if you see it. Totally sleeve it, because like, hey, down the road that's gonna be great in your like constructed deck, but unless you just pull bonkers on,
Now
I'd be happy to play it on my opponent.
Yeah, I would still probably play it because real quick, the card I was thinking of was Cold Snap. Blue Cold Snap I think is going to be huge because it costs 1, which means you're still able to pay for your weapon, and it draws you a card, so it's already kind of playing into that engine of like resetting you up for the next turn, which again I think is really critical to her game plan. But worth noting with that, if you have that card out, where if they have frostbites at the end of their turn, and then they get dealt arcane damage, you can use her ability in response to them passing their turn. So they've closed their combat chain. They've gone and done their thing. You're like, okay, if I can just tickle you for, one more arcane damage, then I win this game, or like, that type of thing. You can just wait, and sometimes that one arcane is gonna matter more than that one frostbite. I'm not saying it's the most efficient way to play her ability all the time, but I can wait till you've already done everything you possibly do to break that frostbite token, and then just make a frostbite.
Also, I redact what I said previously. I didn't know Ice Eternal is a rare. Like, you could easily get an Ice Eternal and, was it Frost Hex in the same, like, sealed pool, and then you just get to be a bully. That's gross.
Ice Eternal.
Well, another one is the weather, the Eisenhower Weather Vane.
Yeah,
Like,
that one's good.
the next time you ice fuse, cool. Now I'll ice fuse this thing, and you have 4 frostbite tokens.
Heck, man, even red Arctic Incarceration's gross. Like, just,
Yeah.
I guess my turn is just going to be give you 3 frostbites.
Lucia has some bomb rares for sure. Succumb to Winter is solid. It's not that hard to get a Frozen status out there. 5 arcane damage is solid. I mean, I don't know. I actually am very much looking forward to this set. I know we talked about there being a triangle, but as far
Soft
as
triangle,
you working hard,
A parabola of pain?
It's not like, I want to be very clear. Like, this is not literal rock paper scissors where it's like, oh, if you see an Icelander across from you and you're Fi, you might as well just like scoop and go home, right? It's not that situation. But I do think that the basic mechanics of how Icelander wants to play versus how Fi wants to play lends its advantage to Icelander.
yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think one thing we haven't talked about, and I think this is going to be important for newer players, who knows if they've stuck around this long as we've chatted, but is the Quell mechanic and the importance of how you're going to be timing it. I know this is maybe something we didn't even really talk about during spoiler season, Shay, because I kind of wrote off Quell as this not that interesting thing, and it isn't in Constructed. Like, I just don't care about it in Constructed 9 times out of 10. Maybe I play it against Prism so that late in the... I still wouldn't do it. I can't imagine a situation that I do it, honestly.
It's a
There's
limited.
no reason to run it constructed.
Yeah, it's here for limited.
But in limited, you could be very heavily neutering one of Fi's final turns. It may be one of the few ways that you survive, and it's the most efficient way to block something at that stage, right?
I mean, you can trigger it multiple times, correct?
You can, yep. So in theory, you could block 6 of Dromai's little Ether Ashwings. So I think the timing of that is going to be huge.
The timing is huge, and the big thing for me with it is hit effects. Like, let's say you see your opponent Fi going off on this big, like, they've set up this big crazy turn. You're like, all right, this is the turn that's going to hurt, and now you can pitch into Quell to more efficiently block, those particular parts of the chain link to not only block damage but also be blocking hit effects. I think that's like the big thing for me, is that some of these rupture hit effects can matter if they get to that point, and being able to block some Phoenix Flames along the way seems like a great usage of that. But again, yeah, I think it's there to help make those big turns hurt less by you being efficient.
Also, if you have a blue flooded hand on a turn your opponent looks like they're about to pop off and toss a bunch of damage your way, a lot of these cards defend for 2. You have 3 pieces of Quell equipment. Burn them while you got them. Negate as much damage as you can. Seems okay. As far as damage mitigation, though, so we have kind of a drought of traditional defense reactions, really. Outside, Icelander has access to 1, and then there's 1 Majestic. But we have a lot of things that are coming in the form of ward and just prevent the next X damage. with Oasis Respite, Sigil Protection, and the one we were talking about in Dromai that's, I don't know, like Pocket Sand or whatever. I think,
pockets.
yeah.
It's sand cover.
Yeah, there you go. Sand cover. Same thing. And I think those don't discount them. They're not as good as having a D-React. Like, they're no sync below, but like if you throw down Red Sigil of Protection at like the end of your turn, your opponent's gonna be like, well crap.
Oh, yeah.
Is it even worth me like, you know, doing much here? It'll make them resequence. And then the Oasis Respites get a little bit of a heal effect on you, which is nice. And they can do some prevention to prevent those on hit effects. As a newer player, those are going to look like weird and clunky, and you're going to be like, I don't know, guys. Do I want to do these? Yeah, you probably do.
Yeah, I think Oasis Respite is a wonderful card.
Mm-hmm. I am on the fence on how I feel about Healing Balm.
So
I'm
the blue I think could be okay, and Islander again, it's setting up like that ability to use your weapon on your opponent's turn. The red, I think the one you never play is yellow.
Yeah.
Because it's just blocking at that point, basically blocking or making resources.
Yeah.
The red versus all these heroes. Most of the way they're running to win the game is through chip damage. And so, like, let's say both Fi and Dromai have means by which they can give the majority of their turn go again. And ending a big go again turn by saying gain 3 life doesn't feel that bad. So, like, I don't think it's like a big auto include, but I also don't think it's a card that just says like never play. Because it's a similar thing to Sigil Protection, right? Now, like, and the thing about that I like about it over Sigil Protection, 1, it costs nothing.
Yeah.
It's 0 cost. And 2, ward only works on the next thing that hits me. Health is forever. If you hit me for 1, I still have 2 of that health left, right?
It's easier to play around ward.
It's easier to play around ward than it is just general health gain. So I kind of like it, the red one of that, more than I like Sigil Protection personally. Now, I think there's times to play both of them. But, you know, I think because of the amount of action point manipulation, I'm going to call it, in this set, because again, like, even Islander has, you know, ways to cheat around you. Maybe you play Healing Balm and then you just, you know, zap them with your weapon. That's still not a bad turn. You gain 3 life, hit them for 2 arcane, and stuck a card in arsenal. Fine, awesome, cool. Now you're set up to zap them on their turn too. Similar thing with Sigil Protection on Islander. I think, you know, think about how you're using these cards on your turns and how much they're disrupting or, you know, enhancing your play. And also, are they disrupting your opponent's lines of play, right? Because I do think that overall, they're getting a lot stronger in the limited format, of making it so that, like, a lot of the cards that you might want to say, this is just bad, I should never play it, actually can have a lot more weight than you might think when you really start getting to the nitty gritty of like how each of the heroes in that set play. Would it ever play Healing Balm in Constructed? Absolutely not. It is garbage in that scenario. But would I consider playing in a limited Islander, Dromai, or Fi deck? Absolutely, because I feel like I can make utilization with it that lets me play into the strategies I need to in that limited style format.
Yeah, when you're not competing against Sync Below, it's a lot easier to be a defense
right.
reaction.
Well, and like, you know, like a card that, you know, I got great play out of it in a limited event was the what was it, the little lightning seal, like, amulet, and it was Amulet of Lightning. That was it. From Tails. I had 3 of those in my top 8 draft pool, that it won me 1 game and almost won me a second one, just because I was able to give any action card go again, and that mattered a lot.
Yeah, the adaptable nature of that is huge.
But again, I got past 3 of them because people were like, "Oh, it's a blue that doesn't block." But I was like, "It's an action card. It's an action card that turns on my Rosetta Thorn, and that's all I care about."
Yep.
Also, so, you know, it's those little things, like thinking about how it plays in your deck for what you're trying to achieve. And that's something that is that's the beauty and trick to limited, is you have to like kind of think outside the box and be like, okay, I have this hunk of cards. What's the best I can do with this hunk of cards? Because sometimes that hunk of cards is gonna be hot garbage,
Mm-hmm.
but you gotta turn that hot garbage into a masterpiece.
Yeah. How do
With
I build something out of this garbage?
Yes.
important thing though, speaking, it looks like Scar for a Scar is put in the common slot.
It is,
Yeah. So,
and it's a wonderful
What?
card.
mm-hmm. Which I actually think, regardless of what hero you're playing,
You just
if
play it.
you definitely the reds. I could even see an argument, at the very least, having the blues in your sideboard.
I think I'd happily play the blues as well, especially in a Dromai deck,
Mhm.
and Icelander deck. How did you feel about trade in? Because trade in is actually one of the somewhat unsung for me in this, because I believe that hand manipulation could be extraordinarily key.
I think it could be very, very, very good in Icelander actually. 'Cause I think she's the one who's gonna want to manipulate her hand the most.
Yeah.
That being said, Innate Go again I think is good for all the heroes.
Mhm.
But I think the hand manipulation I think is gonna be most key in Islander. Also like because I'm not huge on the discard a card aspect of it. But I still think that that is a fair trade, if you will, for what it's doing.
Yeah, I suppose that is a good and fair warning that discard a card is very impactful in a limited format. It does bring you closer to being decked, and doing it too liberally or pushing in situations in which you're not really going to get much of an advantage can cost you the game very easily.
I actually like Sift and Limited.
Yeah, I think I would play Sift in limited. It depends on the deck, but I could see it.
I think the blue
I
just
like
does work.
the blue. I think again like very. It's not what you would normally be looking for when you're building Icelander, but I think it does fit into Islander because again you're getting to set up those fusion turns, you're getting to set up those bigger plays,
Mm-hmm.
which she might need to have the gas to close.
Yeah, I could see, like, I don't know, I could see it, the blue having a line of play in all three heroes. Just being able to throw two things to the bottom of your deck that you're like, all right, I don't need to see this right now.
It also
Yeah.
lets you set up your end game.
Yeah, it's also a blue that blocks for 3. So,
That's true.
like you're not gonna see, it's a rare, so you're not gonna see a ton of them. But like, hey, if you see a blue one, throw it in there.
I'd probably play the yellows too, honestly. The red is fairly unplayable to me. Just because like I honestly don't see where you're ever gaining a benefit. Pitching
I
your
could see it in
entire hand.
Dramai because again like you don't even it's just a red go again at that point, right?
True. Yeah, if that's literally how you're using it in Dramai, 100% yes.
But I mean I could also see like turn one like filter your hand
Mhm.
like or turn two like
Yeah.
I could see it, but again I think it is kind of a niche case that you're gonna want to get rid of everything.
But yeah, other than that, oh, if you get any red brothers in arms in your card pool, set those aside. Those are for your Dromai matchup.
Brothers in Arms.
It's the 6.
Oh, you mean Flex?
No, there's also a 2 cost that has 6 strength in
So
red.
let's go over the sixes really quick.
Okay,
Just
Yeah.
that's
that way.
that's fair.
So Flex is not a 6, but it might as well be. That's
Fair.
only in the red variety. We have Findell's Fighting Spirit in red is a 7, and in yellow is a 6. So, now it's worth noting the blue. When attacking or defending with Findell's Fighting Spirit, if you have less health than your opponent, it gains gain 1 health. Never mind, I was misreading that. Icons are important, but I still think that's all right. Gaining
I
health
actually
while
like that
defending is
card.
actually kind of good.
It still makes it kind of a block 3.
Yeah, but I mean, blocking 2 on a 2 and then gaining 1 is better,
be huge.
right?
And then you have Brothers in Arms in red. It's a 2 cost, 6 attack, defends for 2, but you can spend a resource to make it +2 defense. It's just a better rally the rear guard.
Yeah, and I had forgotten that card. That is a really good call out. So we've named 4 out of the 5. The 5th one being a Majestic, I believe.
Erase
Um,
face.
Mhm.
It is Erase Face, yeah. Which, I mean, I guess is a good card, but
Yeah.
as a
Erase
Majestic,
Face.
it's not that exciting for
No,
me.
no, it does work in limited. Like if you get one, slap it in because
It's not
turns
in
out,
any deck.
yeah,
Yeah.
it turns out saying to these draconic characters like your cards don't say draconic anymore.
I apologize.
tell-
When I say it's a good card, it's not as relevant for the 6-power discussion. It's
Oh,
relevant for why you say it's good.
yeah. Sorry. If you pop a phantasm with this, you might have made a boo boo.
You better be losing the game if you didn't pop that phantasm. If you if you're blocking with
Yeah,
that for a
don't do
phantasm.
that. Use it for what Shay said to do it for. Blank Draconic.
Yeah,
Or blank ice.
yeah.
Or blank ice. Yeah, sure.
Or
really blank
Blizzard.
anything.
Yeah.
Blank whatever hero you don't like.
I actually really like
Erase their face.
I really like Fangdel's Fighting Spirit though. I forgot that it was like a full color like swap. So
I think a lot of people discount it because it's a 3 cost.
It's not that expensive.
It really isn't that expensive. You should be running enough blues to play it every so often.
oh heck, man! If you're Dromai, you're playing it because you want to toss like half your hand to play it and get
I
some
mean,
ash.
Turn 2 going pitch 3 reds, Findell's Fighting Spirit after taking a damage or something like that on their
It's
first
great.
crack turn is fantastic.
Take 7, generate a bunch of ash for myself. I'm happy.
Also, if
Or
you get the,
even like turn the 0 turn, the true first turn, Dramai doing that. Totally happy to do that because I'm probably ripping most of your hand, if not all of your hand, to go to the discard for that. And that's like blocking is actually really difficult in limited sometimes because once you're out of cards, you're out of cards, and 30 is not as many cards as you might think.
Yeah.
Like some people come from Blitz and are like, oh, but it's only 10 more than 40. 10 more is a lot. 10 more turns out it's 2.5 more hands.
yeah. Fog Down, by the way, if you pull that in your sealed pool, you will, even if you don't win games, you will get to see the light drain from your opponent's eyes, at least, 1 or 2 games. So
It's expensive, but it is funny. Being non-attack action cards, lose and can't gain, go again. I forget. I think there's another effect that I don't know off the top of my head. So if you
nope,
know-
I think I just misread it. I think I read it as attack action cards.
You're thinking of, I think it's Hypothermia.
Yep, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Which you could play after they've started their attack chain and then make them sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've pretty much talked about
I agree. I mean,
every.
this was chat, right? Like we were just
Yeah.
walking through a lot of the cards.
Yeah. I mean, you guys stopped me from giving every single dragon a nickname.
You still called one Ooh Dragon.
There's Uwu Dragon, yeah.
Would you like to before we sign off? Would you like to pick another dragon, give it a fun little nickname, and then be required to play it at one of the sealed events this weekend?
Oh, I have to play the dragon? Ooh.
At some point, yeah. Like if you see it, you got to play Illusionist.
Okay. Oh, then
I want you to pick a non-trash dragon.
a non one. I mean, I like Kellogg's dragon.
Kellogg's dragon.
Kellogg's Dragon.
Yeah, Kyloria or whatever.
All right, so you clearly nicknamed it before you told me which dragon it was, and I don't know which dragon. You
See, the
named.
joke is all of them have nicknames. There's Ravioli the dragon.
Oh my god, I just said you
We're
could
going
nickname
deep
one,
down this tree.
and you had to explain it.
Do you not know who? As of Volai, it's Ravioli because he kind of looks like ravioli in the name.
As Volei, the lightning dragon that people have had a long-standing argument between whether it's lightning or ice. It's lightning, folks. That's a crystal dragon spitting lightning.
Nah, it's a ravioli to me.
Or it's
Anyway, okay, so I missed this. I missed this a lot, but my brain's gonna explode.
well, at this stage, we have gone long. It's been fun chatting with you guys. If people have listened to us or watched this stream, usually we are a little bit more on topic. Not a lot more because we like to chat, but usually we're a little bit more on topic. This just happened to be one of these things we thought would be fun before we went into the weekend. We'll come back with maybe a little bit more of a focused here's how you do it and some feedback on how we did.
Yeah.
Hopefully Shay winning with dragons, and me and Drayton winning with other things. I think we're doing a couple of them, so should be
I'm
fun.
hoping I get to play Icelander this weekend.
I'd like to play
Yeah, like-
Dromai that I didn't feel bad about.
You guys are trying. I'm just gonna like nothing. So I'm gonna smooth brain it with Fi.
I mean,
I'm
I
just-
would. I if I get my way, I will play Fi one day, and I will play Islander the other day.
Yeah, I won't force it. I'd like to play not Fi personally. I don't know why. I'd like to just play the other two. They look more interesting to try to make work.
Adam's saying he wants to think this weekend.
I
My
don't
only regret. Go ahead, Adam.
I don't get to play in that many, so I want to play them.
That said, my regret is that Game HQ is a sealed and not a draft, Drayton. Because if it were a draft, I would get the joy of just messing with the draft pool.
They're pre-releases, so they're sealed. But your road
Yeah,
to nationals will be draft.
Dude, I feel so bad for whoever's at my Road to
Oh my
Nationals
God,
table.
Jay.
I feel like it's gonna end up being me, and then I'm gonna
And
curse you
It's
in the
gonna be
podcast
both
later.
of us. We're gonna be one of us on the left of Shay, one of us on the right of Shay. We're both gonna be just like
I call
staring at him
right.
like.
I call
Yeah.
right side.
You can't manipulate this, sir.
You guys,
There are printouts for a reason.
my oops
But
all
I can just
yellows.
imagine us both right now, just like staring daggers into him, being like, "We will end you. We know where you live."
That's gonna be really funny, and he'll just laugh the whole time. He won't even care. What's
Won't
really
even
funny is
care.
then he'll then probably beat us with the deck, and it'll be even
Oh,
better.
he will. He will. Because we've been here before, Adam.
We
We've
have.
been here before.
I just channel the greater knowledge of the universe or whatever.
Oh,
gotta empty
gosh.
your mind.
I feel like you're the guy that I caught at a nationals event shuffling his pack and taking the top card.
Okay, so side note, I have actually played with people who have done that in drafts. He did all right.
I played with somebody who did it, and he got second in our draft pod, which horrified me.
Says anything, Gibbons back in the day, literally the Magic decks he played was, we called it just, he played mono artifacts before artifacts were really good or did things.
So before we keep chatting, I'm probably gonna go ahead.
Oh yeah, we should probably all jump
Yeah,
off here. We should.
probably end this.
All right, real quick.
Thank you all for.
Yes, Drayton, thanking everybody. Love it.
Yes.
You do the whole
Thank
spiel,
you.
man.
Oh, now I got to do the whole spiel,
I like
but I
it.
don't know the whole spiel. It's my first time back. I forgot what the record button was, guys.
All right, well, then I guess I will go. Thank you all for listening. We've been Kadachi for 3. Of course, your support means a whole lot for us. We've got a giveaway going on right now. So if you're watching this video, you're seeing this post, please also go in, look at our review of Reiner versus Dorinthia. If you like that post or comment on that post or like that YouTube channel, subscribe to it. All of those things will get you an entry into this. You can get up to 4 entries on that. So find it, and you can get a copy of the Reiner versus Dorinthia's Classic Battles, whether that's just because you want the shiny foil cards or just because you want an extra one of Dorinthia's new attack, or if it's because you're trying to get a new player in the game. That's not something we care, depending on which one you're going to do. We'd like you to have some participation here and also give us some feedback on our videos as we're really starting to kind of reinvest. We're also sponsored by Edmund Unplugged. They're our local game community and FLGS, and so they give us some of these giveaways, and they'll be helping us do more of that in the future. So thanks again for watching, and we've been Kadachi for 3.
All right, we can all hit the stop button.
That's the square one, right?